Call to order. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is the Equity Committee of the Assembly. I'm one of the co-chairs, Leah Agnew-Benden, and our other... Huh?
Did we start this one?
Have I started this? Oh, yeah, that's my job. Sorry. Pause. Pause all. Thanks, Justin. I forgot that was my name. No, it's just my rest name. Wanting to like verify my identity. Now we should be starting.
Should give it to the youth representative. We'd be going.
It's not stereotype at all.
No.
Ages tech savvy.
Jasmine, I don't see you in there, so I can't make you the host.
Let me close out.
Oops.
Karen, thanks so much. Nice to see you here.
What's
I haven't seen you at one of these meetings before.
I'm trying to get to all of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work, but
Got a lot going on, just your first couple of weeks.
This is not.
learning curve is steep.
Okay. So wait, is yours on I just screwed up and made Candace the host instead of.
At the,
We had a work session.
oh,
Yeah, gotcha.
the
When
task
it's,
force.
when it's a task force.
Gotcha.
That's interesting.
So you may have known that, so just so
Leave it
you
to
know,
that. Was not
you
thinking.
know, you don't vote at those.
Gotcha,
I
yeah.
got hope. Makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, cause I've been kind of conflicted about whether or not to appropriate it. Part of like it's just representation. This is gonna come before, but like, I think I know how these things gonna react to this. It'd be nice.
Hey, Candace.
But at the same time, I respect that.
Candace?
It's not our role in that setting. That would be
Can you hear me?
our opportunity to screw with things if we want.
I accidentally made you the host of the meeting. Can you make MOA the host? Okay.
Maybe I can add her. I just tried that.
Oh.
Okay. Wouldn't be a meeting unless the technology failed. Or I failed the technology. Okie doke. Take two. Welcome, everybody. I think we have everyone online now. Okay.
first thing we like to do at these meetings, and feel free to come join us up here. We're pretty open. Yeah, come on up, folks.
Yeah, you can sit there.
Yeah, please come sit up here. Yeah. I'm gonna start by introducing myself, and then we can go this way around the physical room, and then we'll go to the Zoom. My name's Pia Agnew-Bemben. I'm one of the community co-chairs of this committee. Lori, over to you.
Hi, I'm Lori Bickett, and I'm in the Alaska Literacy Program, and I'm a committee member.
Hello, everybody. I'm Celeste with the Alaska Black Caucus. Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor Donovan with Cook Inlet Tribal Council.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Hughes and I'm with the Anchorage Health Department.
Kimberly Rash, Acting Director, Anchorage Health Department.
Yvonne Humphrey, housing the first planner at Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness.
Jasmine Akers, records clerk, and staff to the committee.
Folks, come on, back.
Tyler Andrews, Human Resources at MOA.
Mike Riley, the Anchorage Fire Department Mobile Crisis Team. Jared Brower, the Mobile Crisis Team, the Anchorage Fire Department.
Great, welcome. Go ahead, sir.
Matthew Hurt, Legislative Counsel to the Assembly.
Sean Case, Anchorage Police Department.
Junior Almavad, Chief Equity Officer.
Jennifer Pierce, Anchorage Fire Department Mobile Crisis Team.
Ben Lewis, Anchorage Fire Department.
Karen Bronga, Assembly.
Zach Johnson, Assembly.
Jesse Tyrell, Youth Rep to the Assembly.
Great, so many good people here today. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's go to the Zoom. Candace, go ahead. Candace can't hear us.
Looks like Ken.
Candace, you can't hear us? Oh, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if you can hear me. It's not that I don't have the volume, it's just a bit garbled, and that may be in part due to my hearing aids.
Okay, you sound loud and clear to us, so.
Okay, good. Are you ready for Zoom people introductions?
Yep, go ahead.
This is Candace Bell, and I'm representing the Alaska Rainbow Elders.
I can go next. My name's Brittany Seralta, and I'm from Cook Inlet Tribal Council.
Great, welcome, Brittany. Jasmine, are you the host? Candace, can you hear me?
Candace, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Are you the host?
No. Not that I'm aware.
You are by accident. So, Brittany, can you ask her to change it to MOA?
Can you change the host, Candace, to be the MOA?
Some are born to greatness. Some greatness forced upon them.
We have to have control of her screen. Yeah. Somebody's just gonna have to.
She can hit accept at the top if she just hits accept at the top. It'll let everyone in.
Brittany, can you just ask Candace to let the people in the waiting room? If she
Having me do anything official would be difficult because of the hearing issue.
Did you ask her to go to the waiting room?
Can we start over?
Maybe we should just.
Were you on?
So Brittany, what I did is I was trying to make MOA the host, and I accidentally made Candace the host. So I don't know if we can help.
How about we disconnect and reconnect? Will that work?
She has to make us the co-host.
Does anybody have Candace's phone number? Could we call her?
She doesn't know how to work it.
Candace, do you know how to make MOA the host?
No.
Yes, there's a mix up. Candace is trying to figure it out. People are texting me that they're in the waiting room. I know.
But see, if we leave and rejoin, will that fix this?
Yes.
How about we all leave, Felix, Candace, and I will leave, and then we can rejoin. That way you can make the host MOA.
Oh, good. Somebody's got to have Candace's number.
She doesn't know how to leave. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh,
restarting and then rejoining us.
It's good now. She could make it over. Who is it?
It's a.
She's in. Okay. It's just Emily's not in. Oh,
I just would like to share that we face this with people who have no digital literacy skills. So with all of our talent in this room that are used to technology, can you imagine what it's like for people with very little experience?
yeah, good point. Okay, succeeded in making Zoom work. Candace, sorry that I created that mess. And we've had a couple more people join in the meantime, and anyone at the back who wants to join, please do. Travis, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure, just right here.
Yep.
Good to see everybody. Good afternoon, I'm Travis Welch. I'm a program officer with the Alaska Mental Health Trust. I've been involved with the Crisis Now project that we've been working on for the last.
We're just doing introductions right now, so that's perfect.
Good deal.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And Taria, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Taria Ware, the Senior Director of Policy and Systems Planning for Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay, we had major Zoom problems, so your timing's great. Got it sorted out now. We can do our friends on Zoom. Okay, so Candace introduced herself. Brittany introduced herself. Joan, go ahead.
Sorry, what was that?
We're just still doing introductions because I messed up the Zoom, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joan Ryan, and I'm the board president of Enlaces.
Thank you. Felix?
Hi, everyone. Felix Rivera, Anchorage Assembly.
And Hannah?
Good afternoon, Hannah Gerusi, regular person, citizen.
Welcome, Hannah. Issa?
Hi, everyone. It's Madrasano, State Refugee Coordinator.
Great. Alan? Okay, Alan's just listening. Anyone else on Zoom who hasn't introduced themselves yet? Okay, let's get rolling. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you all here. First on our agenda, unfinished business, is discussing the naming of public places resolution. Cameron said he was going to be a little bit late. Oh, he's here. There's Cameron. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. So I know we have a really full agenda, so I'm going to go over this quickly, but would encourage people who want to learn more about it to come and contact me, and I'm happy to share more information. About 2 years ago, I started working with a number of folks on how we name places in Anchorage, the process in which we go through that. And in the AM, there's a whole sort of history how in 1987 that what we see now was really created with words like we're naming things with, quote, care not to overlook contributions of women and or minorities, end quote, and other things like geographical influences. So that held through about the early 2000s when another piece was added requiring whomever's doing the naming to consider traditional Dena'ina or other Alaska Native names. But the reality of the way that we've named through public naming panels has resulted in a disproportionate amount of naming not representing the ethnic and racial and cultural diversity of our place, not necessarily representing who we are as a city in many ways. And so this work is really intended to change the entire process in which how we name things, creating a panel that would serve like a commission And people on that panel would serve 3-year terms, similar to others, be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the assembly, and would be required to engage with the public, would be required to follow a set of guidelines in terms of how things are named to ensure that we are using a thoughtful process. And there would also be intentional seats built on this to ensure that we had the right kind of representation, to ensure that we're really beginning to name things in this city over the course of the next decade, multiple decades, in a way that ensures that the naming is in line with who we are as a city. So the 2 pieces that really need some thought are, one, what are those criteria that we use, and to ensure that we're really doing this in a way that's thoughtful, and second, how do we build those seats so we make sure that representation is what we feel like is the right kind of representation. So it's still in the works, and we're planning on holding a work session on this soon to be able to discuss it more. I would also just say that part of the thinking here is that it's sort of like the difference between when we talk about equality and equity, right? Is that equity is really about thinking about our current situation and making choices to remedy it. And so if we continue to do things in an equal way, it will continue to be the same. And so this is also under the idea of how do we shift this work for a period of time, maybe it's the next decade, to begin to get more representation in this place. So that's probably the one I'll share right now. The documents are still in draft form. I sent them out to the chairs of this committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I want to make sure that I leave enough time for the rest of the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Cameron. Any discussion or questions? And just so everyone knows, we'll continue to do what we've been doing, which is send out links and notifications to committee members when there's more information for you to review or a work session for you to participate on this. But any questions or discussion on this topic right now?
Yeah, through the chair. That was going to be my question, if it was distributed. If the document had actually been distributed to the committee members, I don't recall receiving it. And if it hasn't, it definitely needs to be so that we can all have input. Thanks.
Through the chairs, it was linked on the agenda because at the time it was only available online, so I had linked it. So it is available through the agenda.
Great. Any other questions or comments on this topic? Anyone on Zoom?
I have a question. When you're talking about naming, are you also talking about renaming?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cameron. Next one, unfinished business, discussing the resolution regarding employees' hate speech. There's been some action on this since we put this on the agenda, but let's see. Cameron, do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. Are we talking about the resolution that was approved at a previous assembly meeting? Yeah. Okay. Was that distributed to the committee? Do they have? Yeah.
This one did go out, and also the notification for opportunities for testimony at the recent public hearing that was about, I think it was about settling the lawsuits. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I believe the one we're talking about refers specifically to the assistant library director. Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, and so this was drafted and brought forward by Member Constant and myself, and was debated on the floor. And there was, even though the person that this is focused on resigned the day of the meeting, prior to it being bringing forward, the assembly debated this and ultimately passed it. I think there was overwhelming feeling that they wanted this information on the public record, regardless of if the person resigned or not. And so that was voted on and approved by the Assembly. So that was the result of it.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments or discussion on this topic?
I just want to thank Assemblyman Cameron and Perez and Felix and just the entire Assembly for passing that. I wish it would have been unanimously, but nevertheless, I think whenever an individual, as I shared at our last Assembly meeting, speaks hate, makes racist comments, it needs to be immediately remedied and not put off or just set aside because that person is in a leadership position. And the equity committee, you know, if we don't stand for situations like that, then this committee just does not need to exist. And I feel strongly about that. And I know that other committee members too as well. So I just want to go on record thanking the Assembly for passing that and asking that it not take as long the next time. I mean, because we've got to lead by example. Thanks.
Thanks, Celeste.
Tia, could I just make a comment to assemblymen that are there?
Yeah, please do, Hannah.
I wanted to thank you also and hope that this has a trickle-down effect to other public entities within the Anchorage Bowl. So thank you very much for your effort.
Great. Any other comments on this one? Yep, go ahead.
So I really know how important this is when I saw a post on Facebook from someone who was opposing this at the meeting, that their opposition to it, they were comparing to Rosa Parks opposing not being able to sit on the bus in that seat. They felt like they were similar. They were like warriors to not take this hate speech. And I question, I mean, it's really scary, the mindset of some people. So I'm very thankful that this passed.
Thank you. Okay, next piece of unfinished business is just some updates on the 2 task forces that are currently operating. I think, Michael, are you going to do that?
Yes, through the chair. So my name is Michael Hughes. I'm with the Anchorage Health Department, Homelessness Planning Coordinator. So I've been attending the Complex Behavioral Health Needs Task Force on behalf of the health departments. It's not just the health department is just attending along with a lot of other people. But I'll give just a basic rundown of some background, the timeline, and the work that has been done so far. So basically, the Complex Behavioral Health Needs Task Force was established on April 18th, 2023 by Assembly Resolution 2023-145, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly establishing a task force to explore solutions for individuals with complex behavioral health needs. So the task force is open to community advocates, neighborhood organizations, individuals with lived experience, so basically people who have experienced homelessness, service providers, behavioral health experts, and the list is a lot longer than that. So its role is to identify immediate needs and mid to long-term solutions. So immediate needs include immediate identification and implementation of available local, state, philanthropic, and private resources to assist with the transition out of emergency shelter that occurred on May 1st. And for mid to long-term solutions, that includes more complex issues such as needs and capacity, mapping operational and capacity needs, workforce development needs, and more. So just a brief timeline is that on June 1st, the task force will submit an immediate needs report to legislators in the Anchorage caucus, Governor Dunleavy, and appropriate state of Alaska agencies. And on September 1st, it will submit a mid to long-term solutions report. So I can't go too deep into the task force work because it is not done yet, but it is currently working on the immediate needs aspect. So basically, a lot of people who I mentioned before, service providers, behavioral health experts, etc., came together, and based on input from members and a facilitation from a moderator, the task force broke into 4 work groups. And those work groups were housing, healthcare, care coordination, and one kind of catch-all group for the rest, which was communications, resources, and state support. So currently members are preparing for the immediate needs report, which is due on June 1st. And love to talk about the interesting ideas that are proposed in there, but it's not finalized yet. It's still in draft form. And so the health department looks forward to discussions moving forward when that is finalized and the report is officially submitted. And of course, there will be continuing discussions beyond just June 1st because the mid to long range solutions report is due on September 1st. So the health department will continue to be actively involved in that task force.
Great, thanks, Michael. Any questions or comments or discussion around the Complex Behavioral Health Task Force? Yep, Lori?
Is there inclusion of language access in that report?
I'm sorry, just a clarification. Do you mean in the report that will come out, or in the task force itself?
In the report that the task force is working on and producing that you're going to take to our governor, does it include any mention of or identify as an issue the need for language access?
I can speak to that because I'm helping with the task force. Not yet, but it will now. Other questions or discussion about Complex Behavioral Health Task Force? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, is anyone able to give an update on the sanctioned camping task force?
Unless Felix wants to speak to it, I can speak to it. Felix, what do you think?
Go ahead, Michael.
Just to speak to the work that the task force has done, is similar in kind of a similar format to the Complex Behavioral Needs Task Force. Basically, it broke into different work groups, talking about different elements of how to plan for a sanctioned camp. So that includes operations. I don't have it in front of me, but it was operations, planning, design, also meeting immediate needs. That was kind of a common theme between both task forces. But basically, it was the decision of the task force members that they really wanted to focus on immediate needs more than just the report that's due out, I believe, July 6th. Felix, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, the immediate needs took precedence, and the idea was to get something on the assembly agenda on Tuesday, which was just passed. And so, some members, myself included, and Felix and some other people came together over the weekend and really tried to talk about some of these immediate needs in depth, and that kind of produced the assembly resolution that was laid on the table at the assembly meeting on Tuesday. And if Felix wants to speak more to anything regarding the laid on the table element of it, that'd be great. Otherwise, that's pretty much the work that the task force specifically has done.
Felix, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I'll just briefly say, I think as folks probably see in the media, the resolution did not overcome that initial political hurdle of getting the item on the agenda for a variety of reasons. But that's okay. It is going to be coming back before the Assembly on June 6th with a work session planned but not yet scheduled for June 2nd. So the discussion is not yet over.
Great, thanks, Felix. Any questions, comments, discussion on the sanctioned camping task force? Anyone on Zoom? All right.
I don't know if this is the exact appropriate place, but we are seeing families coming to us now that are completely unhoused. And I work in social service, and we've been providing a lot of support, but we're a English school for adults, and I no longer know who to call. So when a family comes to me and says, I have 2 days left in my motel, what's my staff, what are we supposed to do? We're hand driving people around to fill out applications at full family shelters, and I'm feeling really desperate. So if anybody has any guidance for us on what to do, and these are people that don't speak English.
So Taria.
Taria Ware with the Anchorage Coalition and Homelessness. So right now, what we're doing specifically for families is we've created a family shelter wait list. So families don't have to drive around and don't have to call numerous places. They can either call 211 or, I didn't even bring it with me. Do you have them? We'll get you, go ahead.
It's 600-3206.
Thank you. 907-600-3206. And if they call that, then what we do at ACH is we send out the referral to both of the shelters, which is only Clare House and McKinnell, which are both full. And then we contact them within 72 hours to do a coordinated entry assessment. And then every, I think 72 hours past that, we will continue to contact them to see what they need. And when we get our robust outreach grant, then we'll be able to have housing navigators actually go and meet with them wherever they're at. Right now, we only know of 2 families that are living in their cars unsheltered. Everyone else that is on our wait list of about 30 people is currently doubled up or is couch surfing. So that's kind of what we're doing for families right now. Also at the pop-ups, they can come every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 4, and we can make sure you guys have the link for that. There's a thing you can print out, a card, an outreach card for families. They can come and get a meal, which is hot, diapers, wipes, anything that they need for their basic needs. And we're still looking on how to set up a showering station or partner with someone at a rec center to do free showers for families until our shower trailer comes in June. So.
Is transportation provided to those pop-ups?
We do have a cab service, and also that if they call, they can get a cab to go to the pop-ups, but we also have bus passes. So if they don't have any kind of transportation, they can always come or call and get connected to get the bus passes or get a cab.
And you're prepared to serve people that don't speak English?
Yes, we have the language
link?
Yes, correct.
So I'm looking at Yvonne because Yvonne is our housing first planner, and so Yvonne has set up all these amazing systems, and I just get to speak about them.
Could you repeat your number? 907?
600
3206.
3206.
Sorry, thank you.
I have a question. Toya, how many pop-ups do you have currently?
We're currently only doing 2 a week, so every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 4. The Tuesday one is right now is at Cuddy, and Thursday is at Davis Park. And so in June, once Cuddy is abated, we will be moving that pop-up, and we'll let everyone know what our June schedule is. And we'll move it to where the people are. So we don't know where the Tuesday will be, but the Thursday will continue.
Just to follow up, so if you're successful with securing the grant funding, will the pop-ups be available more, like maybe 7 to 6, maybe 5 days? I mean, a week and outside, maybe additional hours other than 1 to 4? I'm just thinking.
No, these are great. Yes, awesome. So we do street encampment outreach also 5 days a week at various hours. So they're non-traditional hours where we're going in teams to camps. But the pop-up is where you have the actual, like the truck with the food and like Solid Medics and ACH. And, they set up the tents and they have clothing and all those basic needs. So street encampment, they're bringing snacks and they're bringing, their laptops, and they might have dry socks, but they don't have all of the things with them like they do at a pop-up. So we're doing that, and then when we get our robust outreach funding, we'll go to 3 pop-ups a week, and then we'll also do mini Project Homeless Connects every month, hopefully, July through September. Hopefully, it was supposed to be June too, and having 2, but maybe 1 in June if we can get the grant agreement signed. And we're working with the health department diligently, and they want it to happen, so it will.
Can I ask, Yvonne and Taria, would you mind if you have any kind of Facebook ad or any kind of promotional stuff, could you share it with Jasmine, and then Jasmine can send it out to our committee members, and then they can send it out on their networks, and it's just a really nice way to get the information out. Okay, thanks so much. I'm actually, if it's okay, I'm gonna move on because we're
Yeah, we love talking about housing and homelessness. It's one of our favorite topics, along with crisis now. Okay, just a couple updates that aren't on the agenda, also unfinished business. One is Daniel Bolland sent us a vulnerable road users draft resolution and a bunch of really great links. That's gone out to committee members. You'll continue to get some information when there's more things for you to weigh in on and do, but just if you want to get caught up on that, we'll be looking at it. It'll be in our June agenda. Also remember in June, we're gonna look at our charter again. So if you have time between now and then to look at our charter and think of anything you think needs to be added or changed, please, if you think of those things before the meeting, awesome, because then you can send them to me and we can save a little bit of time in the meeting. One of the things I already know we need to address is something we're gonna get to next, which is how we bring on new members. Candace is nominating a member tonight, and we realized when we were talking about it that right now it's a little bit blurry in our charter. When someone's a member of the committee, are they representing themselves or are they representing their organization, or is it either or? It's kind of either or. Right now it's sort of open, but I think when Candace brings her member nomination forward, we just want to she'll be clear that it's coming from an organization. And also with Taylor and Brittany, we had originally asked Leanne Garrick at CITC because she's one of the bosses. And she then said she'd love to have Taylor and Brittany represent, which is awesome. But the reason you see it on the agenda again is because we wanted to just be double sure that you were really coming to the committee. Because right now there's a little bit of ambiguity about whether you're an organization representative or an individual representative. So that's why that's on there. So that topic will also be covered when we talk about our charter next month. Any other unfinished business? Great, hearing none, let's keep moving. Okay, Candace, do you want to bring your nomination forth? Oops, we can't hear you. On you.
My bad. I'd like to bring forward for membership Asher Harley. Asher was raised in the Jewish tradition, is currently a member of Congregation Beth Shalom. He has been recommended by his rabbi, Abram Goodstein, to be a member of this committee. And just briefly about Asher, he's been a teacher in the Anchorage School District for 18 years, teaching at Begich Middle School and Bartlett High School. He teaches U.S. history and government, dignity and diversity, peer mentorship, and pre-algebra. Not so exciting, that last one. And he is also very politically active and encourages his students using their voice in the democratic process.
Great, any discussion on this member nomination?
If that was a question for me, I didn't hear it, but if it was a question for everybody else,
for discussion, so that's good. I'm gonna bring this to a vote, and we generally do this by consensus, so I'm just gonna ask if there's any objection to adding Asher Harley as a member of the committee. Hearing none, Asher's in. All right, great. And then I'm bringing forward Brittany Sorrelta and Taylor Donovan. Taylor's here in person, Brittany's on the Zoom, and they'll be here representing CITC. Great. And always want to have CITC represented, and Taylor's got lots of great experience with business as well as many other things. And Brittany is part of the workforce development, is that right, at CITC, also super valuable expertise. Any discussion on this nomination? Any objection? Great, welcome both of you, awesome. Okay, just gonna open the floor now briefly, so please share updates that are really, really, really critical. Otherwise, we can send out updates via the calendar, which can go through Jasmine. But any quick committee member updates on events or things you wanna share and make sure people know about? Doesn't have to be that quick. Yeah, I know. Okay. Maybe it does. All right. Anyone on Zoom? Okay, we're good. Assembly members. Anyone want to bring assembly member updates?
I have one.
Oh, wait. Okay, Candace, back to member updates. Okay, let's hear it.
Hello?
Candace, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to bring to everyone's attention that there will be events for Pride this year from the 18th through the 25th, including a parade. I don't have details on most of that at the moment because some of them are not necessarily all connected, so I'll try to get that to y'all later.
Thanks, Candace. Yeah, do get those events to Jasmine so we can make sure they're on the calendar. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
Assembly updates. Cameron, you got anything?
No, I think we want to make sure we have enough time for the rest of the items, and this, there's something Felix wants to bring up. There's certainly a lot going on that we can talk about, but I think just the one thing I think, and kind of got the cases here, is that the news that the body camera policy has been finalized, and I think that's an important step, even though it took way too long, and we are moving forward with getting body cameras out on the street, so that's a good thing. Thanks.
That's a huge win. We've been interested in that for a long time. Celeste?
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, we're definitely appreciative of that. But there's some issues surrounding the policy that we still have some concern about. So I wanted to put that on the record as well.
Is that something we should put on the agenda
Yes.
for next meeting? Okay, will do. Any other assembly members want to give an update?
Daniel Bolin had me on his committee to work on the bike equity ordinance. And I think it's a really important one. And if, I know you said you would send out materials, but if you look at arrested mobility, you can see what we're after is trying to make sure we're not using bicycles as a way to single out minorities for enforcing rules. And so, though we can't take away the helmet law, we're taking away the fines for not having helmets, and no one can be stopped for not having a bell on their bike. So anyway, the arrested mobility is a pretty good overview of what we're doing.
Great, thank you. Any other assembly member updates?
I like that.
Great. Okay, we're on to our main event. Thank you so much for being here. We're here to talk about Crisis Now. We're going to do this in today's meeting is really about the kind of the early parts of the Crisis Now framework. So talking about someone to call and someone to come help you out. And then at our next meeting, we'll be focused more on crisis stabilization facilities and what happens post-crisis. So do y'all want to come forward, Travis and Mike, and you can all just come sit here. It's easier to have you all around the table. Okay. Oh, and Director Ash, we're hoping you could stay too, just to talk about safety center and stuff if that comes up. Okay, cool. Yeah, anywhere you want. That's great.
Yeah.
You just bystanders today? Okay. You guys don't want to come up? You will?
Just in case we got it wrong.
Okay, all right, fine. So maybe first we'll just let everyone introduce themselves again, but this time maybe you could just say a little bit more about what your involvement with Crisis Now is. And just so you know, like I know these committee meetings can get real formal. That's not how we're set up here. What we're really interested here is both sharing information and then getting discussion with members to kind of help inform whatever it is you're doing and bring up good questions. So it's really a discussion. It's not, I mean, we are going to have a little bit of a presentation, I think, from Jen, which is great, but we really want to have discussion. So, you know, everyone can kind of, you know, relax. There's no interrogation happening. We just want to share information and bring different perspectives to your work. So,
Thea, can I add something to what you're saying just real quick?
Please do.
There's some assembly members that are newer, and so normally we would have to have questions go through the chair, and we would say through the chair, this person, and we would use last names and all of that. In this committee, that has not been the norm. So if you want to speak, you can just raise your hand or say, I want to speak, and you don't have to go through the chair in order to speak. It's a little more informal. Thanks.
And also, I'm not looking at
text, so I know that that's like part of how you traffic the conversation in other committee meetings, and I'm not doing that, so, let's just be together and talk about things that matter to all of us. So, let's start with, do you wanna just share your name again, and just tell us a little bit about what your role is in Crisis Now?
Sure, my name is Ben Lewis. I'm the acting assistant chief of EMS for Anchorage Fire Department. The mobile crisis team falls under the EMS division. So I've been working with this great team here on supporting and developing this team.
My name is Jennifer Pierce. I'm the mental health clinician on the mobile crisis team at Anchorage Fire Department.
Sean Case, Deputy Chief of Anchorage Police Department, and I'm in charge of all the operations for the police department.
And then maybe just say a little bit about what the police department is doing in terms of mobile crisis stuff.
Currently, we've hired 5 more clinician officer teams. They'll all be coming on board June 12th. So we'll have 6 deployed out in the field. They're gonna have about 2 weeks of training, and then there'll be day shift starting 7 o'clock in the morning, and swing shifts training 3 o'clock in the afternoon to start off. And then hopefully once they kind of get their feet underneath them and start moving, we can switch that to 24 hours.
That's awesome. Maybe for people who don't know, just say a little bit about what your teams are.
So our teams are paired with a police officer and a clinician. So kind of like MCT, except we replaced the fire personnel with an officer. And right now with the way the MIT MCT teams are kind of set up, there's definitely some crossover. But as we add more teams to MIT, we'll start shifting our focus more on the crime end and the criminal end. I can certainly talk about that in depth if you want, and how we're targeting certain types of crimes and why we're doing that if you want, or save that for later.
Just in a second, if you also.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, Travis, you go.
All right, good afternoon, I think, so good evening. Travis Wells, I'm a program officer with the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority, and I've been working with our team and various stakeholders and partners throughout the state of Alaska on standing up elements of the Crisis Now model. So it's been going pretty well the last 4 years. Thanks.
Do you want to say a little bit about your area at the trust and kind of your own professional experience?
Definitely. So I'm the program officer that oversees all of our work within the justice system. My prior background is actually law enforcement. I was the chief of police for the North Silver Police Department, and I was up there in Anchorage for about 10 years before coming to Anchorage to work for the trust.
Great, and Mike, do you guys want to?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Mike Riley, I'm with the Mobile Crisis Team as well. I've been there since the inception. So Jen and I co-created the team, implemented it. We both are active members on the team. So you'll see us a lot of different meetings. We wear many hats, but it's all been about creating this team and bringing this forward.
Jerry Brower, I'm the other licensed mental health clinician on the MCT.
Cool, so I think, Jen, do you have a short presentation to share? Okay, awesome. And feel free as you're doing it, there may be, we've talked about Crisis Now a few times, but still, some people might be real new to it, so just go ahead and do a little spiel if you want.
Thank you. We always like to recognize land acknowledgement, that we live and work on the land of Denina before we begin. So the next slide, we have a mission statement and our values, and I think our values are really important for the mobile crisis team, that we value diversity, equity, and inclusion, compassion, providing trauma-informed care, and then empowerment. Not only are these values for the individuals we work with in the community, but also for everyone who works on the mobile crisis team as well. Next. So really quickly about what we provide. We provide a community-based face-to-face response for anyone experiencing behavioral health crisis. We really like to meet individuals where they're at and where they're comfortable. So if we need to move, go somewhere else, we do. We respond everywhere. We go all the way out to Girdwood and all the way out to Eklutna. So we do take some long drives, and we have been finding ways with telehealth to kind of help support that so we can respond to a larger majority of the community. We also try to provide follow-up, which you'll see is something we're struggling with because of capacity and increase of calls. We currently have one team available 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And our goal is to reduce hospitalizations, out-of-home placements, and emergency room visits. What a caller can expect, this is really important. We provide a master's level mental health clinician. Right now, we are both licensed and actually supervisors. We provide a medical and a mental health assessment. A lot of times, about 40% of those who struggle with serious mental illness also have chronic illness. So a lot of the calls we're going to, there's a medical and a mental health component as well. We provide brief therapeutic interventions and safety planning, de-escalation, and then we always try to connect people to resources in the community. We also, if someone needs to go to the hospital, we provide that warm handoff and have a discussion of what their discharge plan can look like and what they need while at the hospital. So our data, this is from July of 2021. So we have a total of over 4,500 responses, which is huge, because if you look at how many days we've actually been available, it's 579 with only 10 hours a day. One of our shortcomings is if I'm sick, we're out of service for that day. So it is something we want to work on and build that capacity and sustainability. And a total of over, just shy of 3,500 911 responses. Our average response time now is about 35 minutes, and that's because sometimes calls are stacking up on us because we're not able to get to them quickly enough because we don't have enough teams on. Since about November, we've been averaging 10 calls a day, 10 responses a day in that 10-hour time frame. Sorry, one more thing. I think an important thing to see here is that 87% of our contacts do stay in the community, with only 2% being transported by APD and 11% by ambulance to the hospital. And then if you look at the housing status, a majority that we respond to are actually housed. About 21% are struggling with homelessness. So we did a 2022 annual report. If anyone likes it, just let us know. We're happy to email it out. So this is going back to 2022. I know this looks kind of small up there right now, but what it looks at is individuals served by Anchorage Fire Department. So we interacted with 758 unduplicated individuals. So we touched 758 individuals in our community. About 180 had more than one contact, as you see. And there's a few what we call friendly faces who hit all emergency services. And we are providing that response to them that we think is we're helping connect them and decrease those responses as well. If you see the individuals served, Alaska Native and American Indian is a little bit higher at 40.5% compared to the Anchorage census data of 7.2%, and showing that there is a mental health crisis in our community and in that culture. And you can see other data. We do respond to all ages, I think, which is really important. The youngest individual I've worked with is 4, and the oldest has been 96. So I think that's important to know that we do all age ranges. Next. Our interaction with the APD and the AFD line, I think it's important to know that a majority of our calls, we respond just as a mobile crisis team, not with APD or with the AFD line. We're having more resources on a scene, right? We want to make sure that the resources there are appropriate. We do work very closely with the APD, 181 times in 2022. A few of those were transported by APD, but 12 times in 2022. 6 were transported to jail. 5 of those were warrants, so there's nothing we could have done. It was just something that had to happen. Next. We also like to look at how are we doing in the community? How are the people who we interact with, what do they think about us and how we're doing? So we have a consumer satisfaction survey. Our administrative assistant cold calls individuals and asks them to engage in the survey. If they have a legal guardian or under the age of 18, we do not contact them for this. We ask, how satisfied are you? Are we treating you with respect, and are we helpful? And as you can see, on a scale of 1 to 10, they find that we are providing all those things. And then those are the little quotes that we have on the bottom, which we always get from individuals, which we love to hear, and all those good things. Next. We also do a lot of work in the community. We want to be able to do more. We do a lot of stakeholder meetings. We attend mental health awareness events. I was actually just at Anchorage Middle School doing a very large event there. We also provide de-escalation and trauma-informed trainings to fire and EMS. And we also do mental health first aid for fire and EMS, trying to reduce stigma, trying to help people be a little bit better when they respond to calls. And that is it.
That's great. Thank you, Jen. Before we go to questions about the mobile team, Sean Case, would you mind also talking about the connection between APD Dispatch and Caroline? Because I know it's not live yet, but it's maybe in discussion.
Connection is live. We've been transferring calls. I think we started in January, actually.
Okay.
In fact, we've recently expanded the calls. We kind of pared it down a little bit to make sure that the crisis line could handle as many calls as that were eligible. And so we've recently upped those calls, and that's going quite well. So the calls come in dispatch, either 911, 311, and we screen calls, have a screening criteria for pretty much all our calls, and if they meet the criteria that dispatch is currently operating under, so we're talking about people that don't have weapons, people that don't have means, then we're going to transfer them to the crisis line fairways.
Cool. So that's something great that's happening. Okay, let's stick with that part of the continuum right now. What questions or comments or, sorry. Oh, great. Okay, thanks, Cameron. Let's go to Panna first, and then just other questions, discussion from the, and then we'll go to Travis. Okay, go ahead, Panna.
Did anyone else on Zoom not see any of the slides? Or is it just me? Because I saw none of the presentation, the slide part. So will those be available later for us to look at?
Definitely available later, and sorry about that. Oh, they were distributed, actually. They were on the email with the agenda. Okay.
It came after the agenda.
Oh, sorry, it came after the agenda, Panna?
Okay, could I ask for them to be sent again? Because I only got the agenda. I didn't get anything after.
Okay, coming to you now. Sorry about that. Okay, Travis.
So just real quick, this is Travis for those online. I just want to emphasize how great these numbers are, the data that's been provided. So nationally, when we look at crisis services, the national standard for mobile crisis response is about 80% left in community. So the AFD mobile crisis team is actually, they surpassed that at that 87% mark. So actually 70 to 80% nationally is what we see as far as the standard for people being able to stay in community. So that 87%, that's a pretty great number. So that's job well done.
Great. I'm curious if members, do you have not personal, but within your community's experience with the mobile team or with the new APD resources, or any thoughts or questions about, is this new information, or have you heard any feedback that you want to share? Celeste?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. And the fact that the hours actually increased from the last time I heard a presentation. They're not where we would like for them to be 24, but the hours did increase, so thanks for that. And at some point this just follows along with what I'm saying. At some point we would definitely appreciate resources so that you can have more employees. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
I saw that the 25 people had 10 more calls, and when I was campaigning, I was at the door of a gentleman that was getting a fine for number of calls. Does that include this also if they're, okay.
Yeah, we do not fine anyone for calling us at all. We're always here to support and help them.
Fabulous.
I can say that I have heard some feedback from other nonprofits and that they're incredibly grateful for the work that you're doing and coming in and the skill that you have with de-escalation. People are actually getting trained by watching you in action. And then I've talked to somebody who's taken the de-escalation training and was really impressed by it. So I really appreciate that. And what you're doing in the community is getting a very good, strong reputation based on what I'm hearing. I am curious about when you do refer people places, and do you do soft handoffs, or is it more like you're handing people a phone number? Do you call with them? How are those resources accessed?
Good question, and thank you for the feedback. Depends on the situation and day. Saturday at 7 p.m. it gets very difficult to be able to do that, and so that's why we usually try to follow up with them on Monday. We oftentimes will make those phone calls with them or encourage them to make those phone calls, or sometimes we make the phone calls and can make the appointment and then reach back out to the person who wants to get that appointment. A lot of times we spend times driving between calls on hold with different agencies trying to make appointments. And I think it just really depends on the situation, but we do warm handoffs, and we do talk to providers and have people sign ROIs so that we can communicate and make sure that there's a full understanding of what's happening. And when we get to see people's houses or see what's happening with their medications and things like that, and then we have them sign an ROI, and then we talk to the provider like, oh, that's really important information, and we can really help them succeed that way.
We're at Alaska Literacy Program. We had some capacity building funds, and one of the things that one of the employees did is that they're working on developing a resource app that you can also access in multi-languages. Is that something you would like us to connect with you on when we get that up and running?
Love that. I would love that. It is something we're always thinking of. We use the language line and just trying to use different ways of how to communicate with someone if they're selectively mute in that situation or struggling. We try to adapt to however they use. That would be really helpful.
I had a question, just for clarification, what is the difference between the existing AFD mobile crisis team and then the semi-existing but growing APD team, if you could explain that?
I'll explain. I'll explain the AFD half. I'll let Deputy Chief Case explain the other half. We provide a non-law enforcement response. There are definitely calls, those lower acuity calls, we want to respond to people prior to their peak of their escalation. So maybe they're struggling with suicidal ideations, or maybe they're having some psychosis or having some mania or depression, or just having a hard time problem solving. That's where we want to help intervene to prevent that peak from happening. We also provide a medical response as well. Having an EMT paramedic, we can really assess the difference between, is this a mental health crisis or a medical crisis? So many times people think that they're having a heart attack when it's a panic attack. And I can't judge that as a mental health clinician, but my partner can, and we can help work through that. If someone has an infection, it can look like psychosis and look like something completely different. And so my partner and we can work through that together. So that's what we also provide.
Conversely, the police department's going to have some sort of criminal nexus to it, as well as some sort of violence piece to it. And where it's important that the two teams work together is we get to see clients on our side that have some sort of violence or criminal piece, but are also a regular client at MCT. And so that communication back and forth, so we're not, when we get to see someone, but it's probably more important long-term for MCT to deal with, we want to be able to hand those folks off to MCT. But we also, like MCT, will carry, I'll say caseload, and I'll use it lightly. We'll do follow-up. We'll try to connect with resources as well. So it's a little bit different in that respect. And then what we really want to add to the team as we move forward is certain types of crimes that we've identified that has either a mental health or a substance use misuse connection to it, or both, and try to implement both mental health and criminal diversion that's something that we're really interested in. We've been working on that for like the past 5 or 6 years. And so the teams will be heavily involved in that as well.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? So like what kinds of crimes and like what sorts of diversion are you doing? And because there might be organizations or community resources here that maybe could help with that?
Sure. So, the easy ones are the lower level petty theft crimes where we see a lot of our clients that they have basic needs and they may be struggling with addiction or they may be struggling with, they're homeless. And so they're committing crimes to feed themselves. And, the right place for those folks generally is not in the criminal justice system. And so trying to divert them to where we're kind of dealing with the underlying issue and meeting those sorts of needs. We've teamed up with a lot of, whether it be shelters or victim services. We've got a good relationship with reentry services. And so trying to divert folks out of the criminal justice system that way is one way. We're even trying to expand this to areas that you don't typically think about criminal diversion, like domestic violence. Domestic violence we can look at that from the perspective of the 80s, which is it's a complete crime of violence and control. Or you can look at it from our current modern times where, particularly in Alaska, and UA has some good data, both from the Department of Public Safety as well as from the Anchorage Police Department, that will show that a high percentage of our victims or offenders have been victims or offenders themselves or been witness to domestic violence, particularly from a very early age. Our Alaska Native population is overrepresented when it comes to both being the victim and offender of domestic violence. And when you think about that particular crime, when you think about the criminal justice response, I think we're well past the point of understanding, and I think we do understand that the traditional criminal justice system response to the Alaska Native population when it comes to domestic violence has not been helpful. And so bringing a clinical perspective to that crime and to that family situation, particularly with the outreach that we've done with some groups like South Central Foundation and CFTC, which are wonderful organizations that have a lot of programs that specifically deal with family environments. Our clinicians will be able to provide that connection in the moment while crimes are being connected, as well as communicate with prosecutors and determine whether or not an arrest is appropriate at the time, given those types of circumstances.
Great information. What questions or discussion do you have?
I have one. I'm curious about, I know that there's been a lot of effort both with the fire department and the police department to hire, and particularly to hire more people that culturally, ethnically, racially reflect the diversity of our community. So I know that's been a challenge and effort, but knowing that that's not how it exists today, I'm curious about your work, not only with language, but just the cultural the differences that you're likely to encounter. Is there training? Are there things you're doing to ensure that the way that you're working with folks, the way you're communicating with them, and addressing their needs are as culturally responsive and relevant as they can be? I'm curious, where you are with that. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. This is Jennifer with the Mobile Crisis Team, English Fire Department. Our training actually has culturally responsive, like how to, in a crisis situation, like understanding culture and how to interact with someone. My education is in rural indigenous culture and understanding that with mental health. That's the basis of a lot of my research is on as well. And so I bring that into the training, and we always bring it in to every call we come to. And we really believe that everyone is their own best expert. I think a call that comes to mind that Mike and I actually went to was someone who was Hmong and they were becoming a shaman. And so we asked them, like, this is the Western way. Is this going to work for you, or we can work with you this other direction? And so we worked with the family, met them where they were at. And so maybe we're not always the best expert in every situation, But I always rely back on the individual, as you are the best expert, tell me how we can help you and how we can get you the right resources. And training in it is so important, and it's already in our clinical training up front. We do some time with that as well.
Deputy Chief Case, do you want to speak to that too?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a follow-up as a committee. I just wanna follow up on that question, and I appreciate the cultural training and everything, but it is important too, especially when I reflect back on the stats. I think it was like 47% Alaska Native, and so it's just so important for communities to see themselves in the service provider. So whenever possible, I know that, I made the comment earlier, it'd be nice to have more staff, if you could just keep that at the forefront. So, thanks.
So, it was really interesting interviewing the folks that put in for the clinician position. We had a lot of people that were interested in the positions and a lot of people with extensive experience. We kind of thought we were going to get folks right out of college that were going to come and do the job, and so we kind of get them, quote unquote, green. That wasn't the case. Most of the people that put in had a lot of experience and are licensed and very familiar with Alaska, worked in either for places like South Central Foundation or have been working in rural communities. Unfortunately, the diversity of the group that put in is primarily white female. But the goal when we selected these folks was not to create a selection criteria where the top score getter, if you will, on the selection criteria got the position. It was more a diverse range of experiences. So when we selected our clinicians, we have folks that specialize in developmental disabilities, developmental challenges. We have some that have worked with the youth. We have some that have worked with very acute trauma. So it's kind of this wide range where we have a broad spectrum of expertise. Here shortly, I'm not going to be talking at these meetings because the clinicians are going to be here talking. And I have no doubt that people will be extremely impressed with their outlook on the jobs that they're going to be doing. These people are very passionate about this community and about the opportunity to provide services directly in the field. And, we talk about a diverse perspective. It's not just their experience, but they're also the types of folks that they recognize in themselves if they don't look or have the experience of the people that they're engaged with. They recognize those shortcomings and they're very open people to, to learn and respond in the best manner possible. They're impressive.
It's awesome to hear that you had a great pool, and I think it speaks to the fact that behavioral health is often underfunded, and so when you actually have a position with really good benefits and compensation, then people want to show up and do the work. So that's great. It's a good empirical test of that. So, and I'm psyched you have so many good people. What other questions or discussion? We just have maybe like 5 or 10 minutes left on this topic. So, and actually, if it's appropriate, if there aren't any questions, Director Rash, do you want to speak a little bit about AHD's involvement in any of this, and then maybe how the Safety Center and Safety Patrol have been interfacing with the rest of these providers, or anything you want to share? Just give you an opportunity.
Sure, thank you so much. Kimberly Rash, Acting Director, Anchorage Health Department. So the Anchorage Health Department oversees the contract with Anchorage Safety Center Patrol, which is a contract through Securitas. They have 2 vans that run throughout the day. One runs 24 hours and the other one runs in the afternoon. And those are for individuals that qualify under Title 47. If they do, they are brought to the Safety Center itself, which is next to the correctional facility here in Anchorage, where they then hang out, sleep, and then are released. One of the biggest things, changes that we've seen recently at the Safety Center is the connection with our community partners. So they have, the contractors have been working really closely in getting connections with the community partners and trying to do this warm handoff, provide them a place to go to a shelter instead of just releasing them out into the elements, providing them clothing. Sometimes they come in with inadequate clothing, footwear, so providing them that before they are released. It is still a work in progress. They are working on increasing their personnel, EMTs 1 and 2s. Recently, they have not been able to run their van service fully because of their personnel shortage, which is seen throughout Anchorage. So that is one of their biggest tasks that they are working on, but they are working very closely with community partners trying to create those connections so that individuals are getting service holistically.
Thanks. I see you, Lori, and I just saw 2 hands on Zoom. So Hannah, I saw your hand up and now it's down. Did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I just had a question to ask the clinician. Just in the Anchorage Bowl geographically, where are the most of your call responses? Where do they go to geographically? Just in the Anchorage Bowl.
Hi, this is Jennifer, the Anchorage Fire Department. We actually probably could pull that data. I don't have it right at this time, and I know we can heat map it and be able to get more of that information. I can guess it's probably downtown, Mountain View, East Anchorage. I'm looking at Mike to kind of help me out with that one. But we can actually provide that. We can pull that data pretty easily and heat map it and let you know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. And then Issa?
Yeah, I was wondering, what does the pre-assessment look like? So you call, what kind of questions are asked to say determine, whether it's the Anchorage Fire Department Crisis Now team or APD needs to make this call, or it's greater than what Crisis Now can handle and it really needs to get referred to like a regular 911 call. What's that pre-assessment look like, and how is that determination made, and then how is it communicated to the caller? And can the caller back off then and say, okay, then I don't want anyone to respond? Like, what's that process look like?
So the 911 and 311 calls come into the police department PSAP line before they get dispatched to MCT, a crisis line, or an officer, or MIT. And the dispatchers have a screening process. They kind of have this long flow chart that they created where they ask a series of questions, and what it boils down to is, again, crime and danger, crime and threat, or crime and immediate threat is going to go to the police department. And when it's not that case, it's either going to go to MCT or it's going to go to the CARES line in Fairbanks. And we do have callers that specifically ask for MCT. We have callers that specifically ask for MIT. We have callers that want specifically just an officer that comes to the scene. You can kind of get the spectrum of everything. It just depends on who the caller is and what their issue is and what their contact has been with any of the teams or officers in the past. If there's no immediate, crime or immediate safety issue, and an officer, or a caller doesn't want somebody to come out, and the CARES line is always an option, just as long as they don't meet the criteria where there's a level of concern that they're going to be unable to care for themselves or others. I hope that kind of answered your question from the police standpoint.
Maybe just add a little bit about what happens when the call goes to the care line.
So we dispatch essentially transfers the call directly to the CARES line and make sure that it's answered and that there's a connection's actually made, and then APD dispatches out of it, and the CARES line still have the ability to bring that caller back to the police department. I think they maybe even forward to MCT as well, depending upon how that call is going. So it's a very fluid process, and for those of you who have been on the ground level, you understand that we use this term of meet people where they are. That means that because they're in crisis, that changes from minute to minute sometimes, and so the program's really been designed so that it can be very, very fluid and be very, very responsive.
I will just add that we do get calls from 988 where they directly say, can we have the mobile crisis team respond? And we work actually really closely with them. We've actually even meeting with them regularly and how we can communicate with each other. We also get calls based on, sometimes law enforcement will call us. We're with airport police, UAA police, and also APD and Whittier PD. We've been working with all of them, so sometimes they'll request us directly, or sometimes our line. You know, our line will go to calls and acknowledge that, hey, we need mobile crisis team here, and that's I'm guessing around probably 10% of our calls. Our line will go out and see something and say, hey, can you come help us?
Travis?
Excuse me. So this is Travis again for those online. Just so everybody's aware, so the care line, the first step to this continuum is that crisis call center. That's the you know, when we look at areas where they have this full continuum of care, typically that's kind of the entry point to the system. As we've been building the system out, the care line, it's been around for about 15, 20 years in Alaska. It's been the where you call if you experience a behavioral health crisis or a behavioral health emergency. Since 988 has been implemented, their call volume has increased quite a bit, and we've been supporting them through funds from the trust so that they can build out their capacity, so that they can handle that increase of calls coming in, not just from 988, but also because of the relationship that the care line is building with the 911 PSAPs to be able to handle that call volume. Deputy Chief Case talked about they started out small and have been increasing those calls that go to the care line. You know, that's a planned thing so that they didn't overwhelm the care line while the care line expands their capacity. Now, what we see nationally is these crisis call centers are able to stabilize about 90% of the calls that come into them over the phone, where that person they stay in community. What we see with the care line is they are right around 95 to 97% of the calls that go to them. They're able to stabilize over the phone in community. The rest of those calls, they're reaching back out to the mobile crisis team, or they're reaching back out to AP or a law enforcement organization, depending on what region or what community that call is coming from, for that response to happen when that individual needs a higher level of care. So one thing about standing up these crisis services is it takes a lot of interoperability between a lot of different stakeholders and community partners. It takes a lot to build these systems out, and you know, the trust we commend APD and AFD for the efforts that they've put forward, and to the municipality for stepping up and funding these programs to be able to provide these services for community members. This goes a long ways in the goal of having equity between our behavioral health system and our physical health system, having two analogous systems that respond when somebody needs help. It also goes a long ways to decriminalizing behavioral health emergencies, which a lot of times, as we saw in the numbers provided by AFD, is disproportionately represented by our Native population and other populations throughout our city. So, there's a lot of work that's been going on for the last 4 years, and even before that. First time I met Deputy Chief Case, when he was Captain Case, it was one of the first conversations we had, was how can we start to implement these types of programs. So there's been a lot of work going on that started well before I even came to the trust, and hats off to these organizations for standing up these services.
I think Celeste, do you have a comment, and then we'll move to closing?
Yeah, I have a comment, and you're right, there's a lot of services, it's great, but the issue for me is communities don't know they exist, and where is all, I learned a lot. I'm totally exhausted though, trying to memorize and so what can we do to get the information to the communities outside of the service providers? Maybe I'm just speaking from alone, I don't know, but this isn't new information for me, and I'm a community guru, so thanks.
I think that's part of why we're here, because that's part of our job is to get the word out. But I think
like for Juneteenth, like will you be there at the health fair, hopefully? You know, are you coming to community events? Are there ways that we can make sure that we're connecting the dots, so we're bringing people out to events?
Well, even with that, I think it's important too that we're at the table to have these discussions too, not just once everything is completed and the information is shared. We want to be a stakeholder too.
Yeah, we do our best to go to community events as we can. We've been to several this year already. We jump on anything that we can be invited to. Our shortcoming is capacity. Like Mike and I had said earlier, we wear many hats. So we base it on, are we shutting down the unit, right? We're not responding to crisis response, or are we doing the community event? So a majority of the community events are done on my own time. I volunteer my time for those community events. And so if we could grow our team and have that capacity, I would love to be at every community event there is, to get our name out there and let people know we're safe people, and you can always call us.
I think that's one role for this committee. The other one, I think, as Celeste is saying, is that as you're developing your programs and as you're making decisions, please come, like, just call and say, hey, we've got something we want to check in with the committee about, because that is why we're here, is like to advise on assembly and municipal actions. Cameron?
Yeah, I just want to really emphasize what you're saying, and one of the things in the creation of this committee, one of the topics that was really forefront was crisis now, and being at the table as this unfolds. And you know, there is now money coming forward and more efforts around stabilization centers, and this is a huge project that is still very much in the works. And so I think this committee needs to be informed and also at the table as those things unfold. So let's continue to think about how we can make that happen.
Okay, just gonna go to Panna online.
Yeah, just quickly, are there plans in the future in your model or in your program to partner or include the Anchorage School District? We're talking 49,000 children. And when I hear you say that you are working with children as young as 4, is that on the table, or is the Anchorage School District a stakeholder with the Crisis Now model and program?
Great question. I have a really good contact at the Anchorage School District that we keep in close contact with, and we actually have kind of created a flow of how the schools can request a mobile crisis team, because there's a concern that we'd be flooded with those calls, and we've actually been talking about what that could look like as we continue to grow. So yes, we've actually been partnering with ASD from the beginning.
Great, and just so you know, ASD is also represented on this committee too, so another great connection. And so we'll take Jesse, and then we need to move to audience participation.
Yeah, Jesse Tyrell, the youth representative. Yeah, pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. You mentioned going to Bartlett, and I just want to say, like, it's amazing work, and I would highly recommend as much youth outreach as possible.
Oops, go ahead.
Just a quick comment to add, like, we've actually been requested a number of times by SROs, the school resource officers, and it's been an awesome experience to be able to go into the schools and help kids in their school.
Great. Hold on, Larry. I'm just going to call for audience participation. Is any audience member who hasn't been able to speak want to speak? Okay, and then I'm going to do one more agenda item. So in terms of preparation for next meeting, I'm just going to read off the things that I've noted so far. I just want to ask members if there's anything else they want us to address at our next meeting. One is, thank you, Jen, for the reminder. We don't have our land acknowledgement on our agenda, so I'll be adding that next time. I was thinking the School of Social Work at UAA is actually doing a lot around behavioral health workforce development. So, and Dr. Amana Mbise is involved with the Last Back Caucus. We could potentially have them come and talk about that topic if people are interested. I heard for next meeting we want to talk about the body camera policy, so we'll definitely have that on. And then, as you mentioned earlier, the vulnerable road user equity policy that Kathy mentioned, and then we'll be doing that charter review as well. Any other items for next meeting?
I'm hoping to get an update from the municipality on the language access audit that's supposedly in the works.
Okay. Whoa, we can follow up on that one as well. Anything else?
I just had an idea that it might be helpful if there, instead of you having to have an outreach person and you having to have an outreach person on ASP and the police department, it'd be really nice to have a municipal outreach person that understood all the resources available, that then could be the person that comes to the events and helps with the training and does the connection to lessen the burden, but also to help us understand. I get good training in one thing, but then I miss out on understanding some of the other pieces.
Okay, and I think there was one, Lori, was that your comment?
You know, I have 7 others, but I'm gonna pass.
Any other comments before we end tonight? Okay, just really want to thank you all for being here. This was awesome, super helpful. Sorry, anyone on Zoom have a final comment or question? Okay, see you all in a month. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and thank you so much.
On the